Hey guys, welcome to another video. Thank you so much for all the new subscribers. My name is Kekeli and I like to do tech videos. And today I'm going to be talking about electric cars, more specifically a Tesla. We hear a lot of things about Teslas and about electric cars in general, that they are dangerous and the battery is going to die out fast, you're going to spend so much on the car, it's costly, etc, etc. But today there's a video out there that I want to review. This lady has owned a Tesla for about 5 years, and she's just reviewing it and putting the cost together to see whether it was a worthwhile investment or whether the Tesla actually cost her more money over 5 years. So without further ado, let's jump into the video.
When I was looking to buy this car, I was debating between a brand new Tesla or a used luxury sedan like a BMW or an Audi that was 2 or 3 years old. So that's what we're going to be comparing it to, because that's what I was actually going to buy instead. And so we're going to compare it to that and see if a brand new Tesla ends up being cheaper than a couple years used luxury sedan. So the amount I purchased the Tesla for was about $41,000. You've got $4,000 of sales tax on top of that, $500 in vehicle registration fees. And I did end up financing it. I paid it off early. But anyway, with the financing costs, that does add a few $1,000s. So the total cost of the car with the tax, the financing fees, all of that was about $50,000. If you buy it in cash in California, it's like $45,000 with tax. So the other kind of car I was considering will go with like a used BMW 3 Series, a couple years old. So in 2019, that would be a 2017 BMW 3 Series. These at the time were going for about $32,000. Sales tax adds on a few $1,000s. Registrations, a few $100s. For the sake of comparison, let's say that I financed this as well, making the total $37,800. So the purchase price obviously is lower for a used car than a brand new Tesla, but there's a lot of Tesla related savings along the way to factor in here. The first one obviously being the tax rebates. Back in 2019, I was able to get like $6,000 in tax rebates. Federal rebate was about $3,000, and in California, I got an additional $2,500. So that's like $6,000 in savings off the bat.
So basically, this lady was torn between a Tesla and a 2017 BMW. I mean, for me, I would have easily gone for the Tesla, and I'm glad she did go for the Tesla. I always tell people, like, if you can go for brand new, take brand new over used any day. Honestly, it's gonna save you a lot of cost in the long run. I mean, like, seriously, brand new electric car or a used internal combustion engine car. It's not a very difficult decision for me, to be honest.
One of the biggest expenses in car ownership is the fuel. Tesla estimates when you buy the car, you'll save about $5,000 over 5 years. But is it true?
The gas savings were indeed pretty significant. Over the course of the 5 years, I really only spent about $2,000 to $3,000 on electricity costs. And this is kind of how it breaks down. The first couple years, I really only spent $30 each month on electricity. I was living at a townhouse and I would just plug it into a normal outlet. Then I spent 1 year only supercharging. The cost for that electricity for the year would have been about $630, although I actually did get it for free because I had a bunch of supercharger miles from referring people. But for the sake of the comparison, we'll pretend I actually paid for it. I had a few more months charging at my townhouse in Washington for only about $30 a month. And now in LA, I've been paying $60 a month, just a flat fee to my apartment building to charge as much as I want. So in total, for the 42,000 miles I've driven, I've really only spent, my estimate is $2,250 on electricity. Now, when I totaled the gas equivalent cost to the same amount of miles, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So keep in mind, with a BMW, you would have to buy the premium fuel, which is usually like 20 cents more per gallon. In LA, the average cost of gas will be like $5 a gallon. In Seattle area, $4.50 a gallon in the last 5 years. So I calculated it based on when I lived in those locations, and the total was $8,000. That's for 42,000 miles. Of course, in reality, it would be a little bit different than this number because gas prices are always fluctuating, but it would be somewhere around here. So the gas savings were pretty right on with what Tesla had estimated, and it indeed was about $5,814. That's how much I estimate I saved by using electricity instead of gas over the 5 years, which is
Wow, those savings are crazy. Those are some crazy numbers. I mean, over a period of 5 years, she saved well over 100% in terms of fuel. What she would have used on fuel, she saved it through charging her car. And I think the secret over here is that have your own home charger, because that way you can just plug it in at home and charge. Because the superchargers are more like petrol stations. They are kind of almost charging the same as petrol, you know. So having your own personal charging system at home that you can always use at any time, I think that's the real secret here if you want to really, really, really enjoy savings.
So as far as maintenance goes, I really only had to get new tires, and I just got the back two tires replaced. It ended up being $629 total. I feel like I probably should have just done all four tires at Les Schwab. That would have been like $1,000. I've seen people estimate it for only 800 places.
So you're telling me that in the space of 5 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the only maintenance that she did was to change the tires. I mean, that is crazy. And this from someone who has actually owned a car for 5 good years. I mean, if she was living in Africa, she might not even replace those tires, if you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, seriously, she didn't have to do any oil change. She didn't have to change her spark plugs. She didn't have to change her fan belts. She didn't even have to work on her brakes because, you know, with electric cars, as you are braking, there's regenerated braking. So once you just take your foot off the gas or off the accelerator, it's already braking, and that's regenerative braking. That's putting back power into the battery for you to drive longer, you know. So she didn't have to do any of these things.
Places. Obviously, I don't have to get oil changes. With a Tesla, you also don't have to get your brake pads done as often because the regenerative braking is easier on your brakes. So even though I only paid $630, we'll just go ahead with typical maintenance and say $1,000 because I should have just gone ahead and gotten the 4 done. I'm gonna get the other 2.
I mean, nothing. There's nothing to really, really change. If it was an engine, oh boy, so many things could have gone wrong. You'd have to work on the engine and, you know, always maintain it. But with a car, you just charge it and you're moving. I mean, that's serious. For 5 years, no maintenance. Wow. Let's see what else you have to say.
Had I gone with the BMW, by this point I would have gotten at least 5 oil changes, and on the low end that would be about $150 each. So that's $750 that I didn't have to spend on oil changes. The BMW wouldn't have regenerative braking, so I definitely would have needed new brake pads by now. On the low end, that'd be about $1,500 to replace. Again, it'd probably be even more than that if you go to an actual BMW dealer. Also, new tires, you know, that's just regardless of what car you're driving. You're not really getting around that, so we'll go with $1,000 for that as well. So the typical maintenance would have been about $3,000 for a BMW. However, I bet it would have been even more than this because remember, I would have been buying a couple years used BMW, so it's possible something could have come up. BMWs, Audis, all those cars are notoriously expensive to fix, especially if you take it to the dealer. The Tesla, we're saving a couple $1,000s in maintenance that you don't need to get. Those oil changes and those brake pads, it's a pretty decent savings. So the expected maintenance really isn't bad, but I have had one issue with my Tesla. I had to spend a couple $1,000s fixing. It's pretty much my biggest complaint I've had with the car. Basically, my autopilot stopped working and I had to spend $2,000 getting it fixed. My car was working totally fine. One day I software updated it, and then after that I realized my autopilot wasn't working anymore. Autopilot for my car hasn't worked in a couple days. I got out to wipe off the cameras again. Still doesn't seem to be working. I just started a factory reset of my car, which I don't know exactly what that's gonna do. It's gonna erase everything, but maybe it will bring autopilot back. I cleaned off all the cameras, hard reset the car like 5 times, and the autopilot still wasn't working, so I finally made a service appointment. They said they had to replace the whole computer in the car, which was $2,000 to replace. So they charged me to replace the computer. Then they told me that replacing the computer actually didn't fix it. The problem was still there. Apparently the wiring got messed up with one of the cameras, so they replaced one of the cameras, and they didn't charge me anything after that because they just charged me for the computer. That's how they decided to do it. Now, from what I understand in this situation, it wasn't the computer that needed to be replaced, it was just the camera, but they still charged me for the computer. They charged me for the more expensive fix, and that was frustrating. I felt like there was kind of nothing I could do about it. You know, I'm not an engineer. I don't really know how these things work, but I figure if replacing the computer didn't fix it, then that wasn't the problem. And fixing the camera I found online is cheaper to replace, only $500 to $600. So I was frustrated that they still charged me $2,000 to fix it. So I will say, had this happened under my 4-year warranty, they would have fixed it for free, but it was right after the 4-year warranty expired, so I had to pay for it. And there was just something that still feels off to me about this whole situation, because why did it happen right after a software update? It's just a little fishy to me. I feel like I got screwed. I don't know. It was weird. I try and not think about it because it pisses me off.
Okay, so she's saying that basically she just needed her autopilot stopped working. And autopilot is just like, I mean, like when we have a plane, you can just put a plane on autopilot and it's flying itself. So the car can drive itself and do everything. Yeah, it's not a must-have because there are lots of Teslas that don't even have autopilot. But I think she was comfortable with it and she wanted it on her Tesla. So it's not a must. It's not something that was really necessary, but she still went ahead and changed it. And I think she kind of got cheated by the Tesla guys because maybe they didn't understand or they didn't diagnose the problem properly. And I think that's why it's always important to understand your car yourself. Understand some of the basics so that if there are things you need to change and swap up in your car, you can easily do that without always needing to go to a repair, you know. But yeah, in this case, I mean, it's something that is beyond a lot of people. So I fully understand her on that. But honestly, autopilot, it doesn't stop the lane assist and all those things. Those things still work. Autopilot is just like fully automated self-driving, but it's not a must. Well, if it was me, I wouldn't have got to change it. I would have, you know, kept driving because it doesn't stop you from driving, right?
At the end of the day, I could still drive the car. It's not like the car was broken. The autopilot just wouldn't work. And there really aren't any other car companies with an advanced version of autopilot like this. So that was a weird situation. And if it happened to me, it could happen to you. If something happens with one of the cameras, one of the electrical parts of the technology, you might get charged quite a bit to fix it. Let's take a look at the final total of the cost of ownership over 5 years for the Tesla.
Awesome. This is why we are here. How much did she spend on the Tesla within 5 years? Let's see.
So the cost of the car after the rebates, but including taxes, registration, everything, was about $45,000. My maintenance was only $600, but I'm just gonna say $1,000. We'll just pretend I got all 4 tires fixed. My insurance cost over 5 years was about $8,000. My electricity fuel costs were $2,200. My unexpected maintenance to replace that computer was about $2,200, making the grand total $58,574 to own a Tesla over 5 years.
What do I think about the cost? I think the insurance is just crazily priced. I don't know about America. I mean, if there's Americans insurance, then Ghana, we are getting it really good because, wow, there's a lot.
Now let's compare it to the used BMW, which would have been about $37,000 for the purchase price, taxes, registration. Insurance would have been $14,000 after 5 years. Absolutely insane.
What? $14,000 on insurance, man. Okay, I think maybe it's an American thing.
Gas costs would have been about $8,000 after 5 years. Maintenance would have been about $3,000 on the low end. I'm really being nice here with this number. I feel like it would be more like $5,000, but we'll say $3,000.
I think she's being too nice with the maintenance costs because it would have been way more than that. Over 5 years, a used car would have been way more,
making the grand total cost of ownership of the BMW about $63,000. So my original theory was correct. It was cheaper overall to own a brand new Tesla than a used BMW. Like, you would think a used car would be cheaper than a brand new car, but not when you factor in the fact that insurance is cheaper and of course the electricity is cheaper than gas. It ended up being $4,769 cheaper to own the Tesla after 5 years. And what's interesting is the savings actually don't stop there.
Yeah, $4,700. I feel that it's way more. Maybe she's just been a bit conservative with the numbers, but I think that it's gonna be way more. In the next 5 years, it's gonna even be more because the natural internal combustion car is basically getting to the end of its lifespan. With a Tesla, the battery doesn't just die out ordinarily. These are high grade batteries, and it said that you may lose about 15 to 20% of the battery's charge over a 10-year period. And that's not even too bad, actually. In the short term, it's good, and in the long term, it's even better to own an electric car over an internal combustion engine. With an internal combustion engine car, it's basically deteriorating every time you drive it. But with an electric car, lots of updates, it still drives the same, almost the same as when you bought it brand new. It deteriorates much, much slower than an internal combustion engine. So in the long run, it's gonna save you more money. So yeah, I think if you're watching this and you are contemplating whether to get an EV or an internal combustion engine, I think the answer should be very, very clear by now. Well, I don't know about you, but what do you think about it? Do you think her numbers are accurate? If you own a car here in Ghana, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know whether you are actually saving here in Ghana or whether you are spending more as an electric car owner. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, stay safe and be blessed.